Hello and welcome to day number 2 of the Beginning Beekeepers video course, where success begins with you, the beginning beekeeper. After today, you're going to be thinking bee. We're going to cover bee behavior, life in the hive, inside and out, and all the different jobs that bees can have, the different classes of bees, and best resources to gain information from, because we all know that there's a sea of resources out there. There's all different kinds of ways to gain information about beekeeping and how to do different things. So we're going to go over some of those resources, and I'm going to narrow it down for you as best I can. Finally, you're going to learn the best practices for how to keep the bees happy and healthy through the first year. So let's start with resources. In this first year, before you even get bees, you want to start thinking bee. You want to learn everything you can about the bees themselves. The best #1 way to learn beekeeping is to find one local mentor. Now, that mentor could be beekeeping just a few years, or could be beekeeping for many years. Ideally, you should find someone to mentor you who has been successful in beekeeping, but also you want to find somebody who's actually truly going to be helpful to you. So that's very important. Alright, #2, you can join your local beekeeping club, and that might be a place where you will find your mentor. So one of those two ways to start, if you know somebody ahead of time before you know about the beekeeping club, they kind of go interchangeably for when you usually start. So, but those are the two really good places to get information from about beekeeping in your local area. Alright, let's go to some books. Many people turn to books as a way to gain knowledge about beekeeping. And there's a lot of different books out there. My beekeeping club has a whole library of books, and I've gone through all of them, and my top 2 books that I think are great for surviving the first year of beekeeping is #1, Beekeeping for Dummies, and #2, the Beekeeping Handbook. Both of those are really easy to gain information from. They're easy for new beekeepers to understand, different terminology, and I just love reading them because they have some humor to them too, and they make it really fun to learn beekeeping. And they talk about a lot about what goes on inside the hive and the way that the bees organize themselves in their colony. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Right? The last resource that I want to bring to light is YouTube. You know, a lot of beekeepers will say, turn to YouTube and watch videos. Those are really good things to do. There's a lot of YouTube channels out there for beekeeping. Some of them are way better than others. The 2 main ones that I've watched for different strategies and the different tasks that you will have to face are Black Fork Bee Club and Kelly Beekeeping. I watched a million different videos the day that my bees were scheduled to arrive about installing bees into the hive. I watched different strategies, different techniques of doing it. I watched videos on people who don't shake the bees into the hive, people who do shake the bees into the hive, and the most calm and collected and understandable video that I watched was from Kelly Beekeeping. Another video is the candy boards that I really enjoy, and that's Black Fork Bee Club. And he has some other videos as well that I really enjoyed watching and really learned a lot from. I incorporated those techniques that they used into my own practice, and so those are the practices that I use. And for where I live in Kansas, the climate is really hit and miss, So the climate can be really hot one day, really cool the next. For example, this morning it was 19 degrees and the day before that it was 70. So, I mean, the temperatures are really fluctuate quite a bit. We get really hot, we get really cold. So really any climate, I wasn't really looking to a particular climate per se, but I like Black Fork and Kelly. They're northern beekeepers, so I liked that about them as well, as they go through the extremes just like we do here. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're shifting through resources. If you're from a typically warmer climate, check with resources, local people that also work with warmer climates. They will be able to help you a lot better because they know and understand the climate that you live in and about moisture and ventilation and all of those things that you might face. Even if you live in a warmer climate, you're going to face certain hardships too as well. So those are the top 5 resources. Now, what information from those resources should you be studying? Well, first of all, you need to know and find out which breeds of bees, which types of bees, you should be getting ready for. Okay, so you need to decide from the 8 species of bees which ones you're going to get for your hives, which ones are going to work best for you. Now, within the 8 breeds, there are just a couple of them that beekeepers recommend for new beekeepers in a way that they're gentler and a little bit easier to manage and to learn from. They're not as aggressive. Behavior is a lot to do with it. So you might keep that in mind. Talk with your local people, your mentor, and figure those out. Alright, the number 2 is you need to know the classes of bees. Okay, there's the queen, there's the drone, and there's the worker. Alright, and you need to be aware of what they do. The purpose of the queen is to mate and lay eggs. The purpose of the drone is to mate with the queen. And of course the worker bee is just like it sounds like, it works. And we're going to talk about some of the jobs that they do here in a minute. Number 3, learn about the life cycle of the bee. Okay, it takes 21 days from the brood hatching for a worker to be fully adult and ready to work. Okay, it takes 16 days for the adult queen to be ready to breed. So know the life cycle of the bees and the different classes of bees. Understand that in the fall the drones are going to be kicked out of the hive. Understand that, because you're going to get to fall and you're going to see bees being kicked out of the hive and laying on the ground and stuff, and so look at them closely and see that they are more than likely drones that are going to be kicked out. That's just what they do every year. So there are essentially 9 different jobs that workers are known to choose from and do. Okay, number 1 is nest cleaning. Number 2 is a queen attendant. So you may be seeing it clustered around the queen. The 3rd one is comb builders. Number 4 is food exchange workers at the entrance when the pollen jocks bring them in from the outside. Number 5 is handling. Number 6 is hive odors. Number 7 is foragers. So those are the pollen jocks from Bee Movie, and they actually go out and forage for the pollen. And they also let the others know of the food source and where it is by communication. Alright, number 8 is ventilation. So there's actually bees that will fan using their wings for ventilation. And then number 9 are the guard bees that stand guard at the hives. So knowing those activities, you can learn a lot more about the organization of the colony and of the hive inside and outside. Alright, and finally number 5 of all the information you should know and study in your first year, you need to know at what temperature everything works at. So a lot of people, they go into winter and they get worried about their bees being too cold inside the hive. And the Beekeeper's Handbook has a really nice visual that shows at what temperatures the bees do their different things, different jobs, and what actually happens in the hives during those temperatures. So we're getting into winter now. We're in winter. Let's talk about cold weather. Alright, so less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the brood is going to stop rearing and the workers won't be able to fly. And that's about 57 degrees is when a cluster forms. So they're going to stop leaving the hive at, at around 50 degrees. They're going to stop. So they're going to be in their hive and their cluster. 42 degrees Fahrenheit, the bees can't move. The muscles aren't hot enough, so they're going to still be in their cluster inside their hive, keeping each other warm. And if the bees are alone outside at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, they're going to pass away. They're going to die. So as long as they're inside their cluster, inside their hive, they're going to be just fine. Along with that, there's some awesome communication dances that are really fun to learn. The different dances that they do, like when there's a food source nearby, when the queen is ready to mate, and different things like that. There's certain dances, they communicate by dancing, so you can learn the different ways they communicate also, just by doing some research on that. Alright, so those are some of the information you should study to start thinking like a bee and understand how bees live their day-to-day and why they do the bee things that they do. Finally, how to keep the bees happy and healthy in the first year. Alright, so if you think like a bee, you'll kind of have a really good idea what they need. The top 3 things that they need, that you need to make sure that they get, is you need to make sure they're fed. Okay, if you're getting packaged bees that don't have any drawn comb, you're going to have to feed them in the spring. I would suggest feeding them anyway, no matter what. Make sure that they're fed until they can get a buildup of their comb and honey inside their hive. Okay. The second one is parasites. You need to know about varroa mites, and you need to know about small hive beetles, and your local groups will be talking about these different things. Your mentor will be talking about these different things. So definitely listen and pay attention and do some of the things that they're doing, because they have a lot of really good ideas, and a lot of them keep up with the new technologies out there to make beekeeping better and easier for all of us. Alright, and along with parasites and being fed, low stress. Okay, keep your hives as low stress as possible. Controlling parasites, controlling varroa mites will help with that. So you want to do inspections. You want to do inspections at least once a month to 2 weeks in between there. I know there's a lot of people that go in their hives even more often than that, but my mentor recommends not to bother the bees so much. Yes, you need to get in there and learn about them and watch what they do, but it's more important to let the bees do their thing that they were born to do. So I hope you've gained a lot more info about thinking bee, about gaining the resources that you need, shifting through the sea of resources, and setting aside what you don't need to learn, and putting in front of yourself what you need to learn, prioritizing what you need to learn to get through your first year. Beekeepers, be sure to download the copy of the top 5 resources using the link in the email. Start thinking bee, and I'll see you in the next video.